We have another artist here in the CNL2 studio. This may be our last artist interview before the studio tour. We don't have any others signed up. You still can sign up and get in, but we're getting pretty close now. And I know that everybody's really getting focused on building up their inventory and cleaning up their studio and all that. Today, Kristen Douglas-Seitz has joined us. Kristen.
Thanks for having me.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming in. And I think you're 17 or 18. This has been a really fun series for us. And we've had this great variety of art and artists, but this is completely new for us. You're in bronze sculpture, right?
That's right.
That is kind of amazing. It's kind of like, I don't know. It sounds really high level. It sounds like museums, and when I think of bronze sculpture, it's pretty intense. Where do we start? Where did you start? How did you get into this?
Yeah, so it's not easy to get into, and I've always loved it. Where I'm from, there's a river walk full of bronze sculpture, like life-size wildlife pieces. And I just grew up looking at that and thinking it was so special.
And where was that?
That's in my hometown, Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yay, Tulsa.
Yay, Tulsa. So I loved that, and I always dreamed of making them, and I had no idea how it was done, but I was going to do it. So.
And how old?
I was probably 4 or 5 when my dad started taking me to the river parks.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you've wanted to be an artist literally pretty much your whole life?
My whole life.
Huh.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so we're in Tulsa. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Continue with the story.
No, that's fine. Yes, so in Tulsa, there's an art show called Nature Works, and it was my dream to get into that show. And my parents would take me religiously, and I would go and pick all of the artists' brains when I was a little bit older, but was too shy to do that when I first started going there. One of my favorite artists, Jocelyn Russell, was an artist that I met at that show, and I adored her and her work, and would have a little binder, and I would put together all of her step-by-step processes, because she was really one of the only artists that I could find that would put that out for the public to see. And I thought, wow, I could figure out how to do this, and I still have that binder, and she laughs to this day. But I've been following her since I was 9 years old, and was a mega fan, and now I live here, followed her here, and worked here. About 8 years ago, I got the chance to work on a huge project. For her, it was like the biggest of her career. It was, 5 elephants, meerkats, lions, you name it, for the Audubon Zoo in New Orleans. So we worked on that about 2 hours from where I grew up in Oklahoma City, Norman area. And she said, why don't you come down and work on the project with me, and we'll see about that. So I signed her guest book and drew a little smiley face and circled it about 10 times with an arrow and said, pick me. And she said, call me in a month and we'll see what to do. And she cracked that guest book open when she got home and laughed, and she said, I couldn't forget about you, and that was my point. And so I called her, and she said, come on down. I was only supposed to be there for 1 day. I think her sister thought she was crazy for letting a new girl in on the job. But we hit it off, and I ended up staying 11 days. I went to the thrift store, got clothes. I made it happen. So we hit it off, and she didn't have to babysit me. We both put our headphones on and got to work. She'd even hand me little clay snakes and say, climb up there on this life-size elephant and put the veins on the back of the ears. And I could not believe that another artist would let me touch their huge piece.
Right.
And so I was just in heaven. I was sitting on little baggies of clay to warm them up, and I just was up there on that ladder all day. So then she asked me if I wanted to come to San Juan Island and see where she worked and lived. And of course I had to come.
Right.
I was only here to visit for 2 weeks, but the locals told me that I would never leave. And I thought that was really funny until it happened. So here I am 8 years later, and I'm still working with Jocelyn. We'll probably be there until she kicks me out, which will be never. And I live about 10 minutes from her with my husband, who also does art as a hobby. And I work with Jocelyn and her husband, Michael, who is a professional welder. So we do all of our pieces like this in clay, and then we send them off to be molded. And then they come back in raw bronze pieces, and Michael welds all of the pieces, and I do all of the tooling and finishing work and the coloring, which is the patina that you see here.
Great. So I'm still thinking back when you were 4 or 5 and you knew what you wanted to do when you were 4 or 5. Very few people actually wind up doing what they wanted to do when they were 4 or 5. Were you doing like a lot of Play-Doh stuff at the time? Were you big into Play-Doh?
I wish I had my hands on this quality of clay when I was a kid, because it would have skyrocketed me even faster.
Maybe 3 years old. You'd.
But yes, Play-Doh, and so my little sob story to back up here was I went to college to do this, and when I toured the school, there were students my age, and they were creating pieces like life-size bronze teddy bears with stuffing coming out of the back and other animals, and this is what I want to do. This is it. And so I went and I enrolled. After 2 years of getting my basics out of the way, they dissolved that program, unfortunately. So I got a painting degree, and I'm very happy about that. But bronze is really what I needed help with. So it really pushed me to go to these art shows and ask other artists who were doing it for a living, how do you do this? Like, got me out of my comfort zone. And
Are art programs that do sculpture and particularly bronze, are those rare?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
My near miss was I almost went into Washington University School of Art, which is a pretty good one in St. Louis. Wish I had. I can't imagine how different my life would be. I don't know if they do bronze. It seems like something that would be pretty rare. So that's terrible. So they shut that down while you were in the middle of your career there?
That's true.
Oh, wow. You must have been pretty bummed about that.
I was devastated, and I
Yeah.
can remember to this day being in their office and begging them to find another instructor, keep the program running. And I know that they probably did everything that they could do, but their words were, "You're just one student, and we can't run a program with just one student." And so I felt really alone, and was still painfully shy at the time. But my mother told me, you know, there's bronze artists that you admire around the town. Why don't you just call them up and ask them how they did it? And that's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah. So did you complete and then get the art degree via painting, or?
I did.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're a good painter. You're a trained painter, right? And a good painter.
I love painting. My grandmother was a painter. Her mother was a painter.
Yeah.
My mother always jokingly said that it skipped a generation and went to me, but I found out that she took a sculpting class at the college for fun, and I walked in one day and she had giant clay pieces sitting on the table, and I said, that's where I got it from. I just started it first, so it's been in the family for a while.
Jeremy, do we have any pictures of Kristen's paintings? No, we don't. Okay. So, well, are they on your website?
They are not. Since I've been doing bronze professionally, that's really taken all my time. But I used to teach painting classes and do some private lessons here on the island. And I'm going to be getting into this again next year. So
Getting into what?
Painting again.
Oh, okay. Good. Well, if your painting is as good as your sculpture, then you should do that.
Thank you.
Because we need that. So, you have an art degree. Is that a BFA?
It is.
Okay,
Yes.
That's cool. And so, you've been bitten by this bug a long time ago. Do you think this is a career for the rest of your life?
Absolutely. And I think being here on the island surrounded by the other artists, especially during the studio tour, has just been huge for me. I wish I had done it had started it sooner. And one other thing that I do is teach art workshops. And so I travel and I also do them here and teach people step by step from start to finish, because that's what I wish I had gotten in school. But I'm so thankful for that experience nonetheless, because it got me here. It got me out there talking to other artists, and it pushed me to work with Jocelyn. So I was very hungry by the time that I met her and started working with her, and we've just connected well, and we still show and work together to this day.
You teach you teach from her studio or in her studio? Where do you teach?
I have put workshops together in her studio, but it's something that I've been doing before I met her. So I've been doing this about 9 years, and I do them across the country, and I've started making online classes as well for this starting this year. So.
Okay. Well, so describe the process a little bit. Jeremy, let's go to the dog here. What's this dog's name?
This dog's name was Kate. She was a German Shorthair Pointer.
Do you get commissioned to do a lot of works for pets that are gone or pets that are still alive? Usually there's an actual, I want to say human, there's usually an actual animal, right, that this is in tribute to, at least for the dogs.
That's true. Most of my clients' animals are still alive when they commission me to do a piece. Kate, however, had already passed, but she was very special to them and their team.
You had to work from reference photos then?
I did,
Yeah,
and I.
That's probably harder.
That is harder.
Yeah.
It was easier with her because I was able to travel to their house, and they had all of her puppies that had grown up.
Oh.
And so I got a lot of hands-on reference, and that's what I like to do if I can. If they're comfortable with that, as I travel to their location and I get to meet the animal that I'm working on, and not only measure them, but get a feel for them and put my hands on the actual animal and just get a read for their personality. And because I love seeing that in real time.
So Jeremy, let's go back to that piece. So where did you have to know the animal's anatomy, right? Just like humans and figure drawing and things like that. You have to understand what's the skeleton and the muscles and everything that's going on there. It's not just from the appearance. You have to actually know how the animal is kind of put together, right?
That's correct. I think for me, being a representational sculptor, anatomy is a #1 priority. So we start with basically a skinned dog, and we work from the inside out. So all of the muscle layers are put on, from the deep tissue to the very outer layers. And so she looks like a skinned dog. Now, this dog isn't very furry, so she's got very smooth coat. And I think it's easier for people to hide the anatomy with a lot of fluff and fur.
Right.
But for me, I think animals are perfect the way they are. And so if I can get close to that, that's what I like to do.
We're like seeing every muscle here, right? Which is cool. That's pretty cool. Now the process, you don't sculpt in the metal. You sculpt in, were you saying foam or styrofoam and then clay? Describe that process.
Sure. So we start with an oil-based clay that never dries out. It's kind of like a glorified Play-Doh for adults. And we do all of our sculptures in that. And then once that's completely done, we send it off and have a professional mold made. And then it comes back from the foundry, cast in a lot of different pieces that look like puzzle pieces that need to be welded together. So Jocelyn's husband is a professional welder, and he does all of that. And then he hands it off to me, and I do all of the finish work and tooling and texturing, and then the patina, which is the coloring like you see here. So Kate has on her white areas, kind of like that smoky gray white area, is a titanium. And that's applied with a torch, and it's very hot, and you brush it or spray it on. These other areas here that are more bronzy brown color, that's a ferric that's also applied with heat and brush or spraying on. And right here is like these little details get high polish out back to raw bronze.
So this came back in 6 pieces from one of your suppliers around the country. Mm-hmm. And then was there a point where you could see after Michael did the welding, you could see the welds and then you have to polish those out or
yes,
burnish them out somehow?
He is definitely a very professional welder. So it's hard to see them, and that's the goal, is to make sure that you cannot see the weld lines. I won't point them out to you. But yes, tooling them and retexturing them to
approximately
to hide them.
Where were they though? I don't need to see the exact.
Yeah, so this one piece is cut through her belly in 2 pieces. Mm-hmm. Her neck was cut off, and all 4 legs.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Now this is a small version. There was a larger version too, right?
Yeah, so I did this piece for the owners of Kate, and I took this one and we scanned it and enlarged it in foam pieces. And so they mill it out of these foam chunks and it comes back to us, and it roughly looks like this, but at life size. And then I go in and I carve out all of the details with my sculpting tools and then apply a hot layer of clay on there, actually a couple layers of hot clay, and do all of the detail work again.
Now, did that also come back in 6 pieces or more pieces?
A lot more pieces.
A lot more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long does all this take?
We generally like to tell people that we can get a piece to them in 8 months to a year, because not only is it so labor intensive on our part, once it leaves our hands and goes to the foundry, they also have a production line of other artists, and sometimes you're not number 1 in line. So it can take quite a while, because it goes from us to the foundry to the mold maker back to us, and it probably travels through a team of 10 or more people sometimes. So there is kind of a wait time for it, but it's worth it.
Do you have multiple projects going at the same time?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Like how many would you have going? If this takes, what'd you say, 8 months? It's a long time. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of steps. Mm-hmm. You have half a dozen things going, or how? I'm just curious how.
Right now I have 2 to 3 smaller pieces at home and 2 big ones that are in the works. They're not back to me yet. And then I'm working on about 4 to 5 pieces in metal of Jocelyn's at her studio.
So do you see, as your career progresses, do you see the pieces getting bigger and bigger and more ambitious?
I do. I've definitely caught the bug for the big pieces after working on Jocelyn's. I love working big. It's almost like the animal's there in the room with me.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that, yes.
So you must have learned a ton from this large installation in, where was it, New Orleans? Where did you say?
Yeah, it was the Audubon Zoo in New Orleans.
Yeah. This is just on such a high level for me. I think this is so cool, but these are really museum quality things, and to be at an entrance to a important zoo. I mean, this is heavy duty stuff, and the inspiration of the design of all these things is coming out of little San Juan Island. Isn't that amazing?
That's true. That's true. I feel very lucky to be doing what I'm doing.
Well, yeah, we're lucky to have you here doing this. So, Jeremy, let's look at some of the pictures that we have. You can narrate these for us, Kristen.
Okay. So this was a little California quail that I did as a commission for a family. And I was creating this piece at the studio, and a family of quail were out in the driveway, and Michael came out running, quick, come out, look. And so I grabbed my piece and I put it down in the driveway, hoping that they'd run by so I could get a photo shoot, but they were too scared.
Ooh, that's beautiful.
This is also another commission of a mallard duck. And at the time, we had just hatched about a dozen baby mallards, and they were running around the shop. I even have pictures of this one in clay where I sprinkled some grass clippings along the back and on the beak, and the babies were jumping up on the piece, and I got some great photos of them interacting with this, and it was very sweet.
Where do those colors come from? How are those colors applied?
So I have different pigments on the head for the green, and I do that with a brush and glazing technique, and I also do that on the wing. It's kind of a transparent color. The rest of it, on the whole rest of the body piece, it's all chemical and applied hot.
This would be an example of something that would still be an interior.
That's correct.
This would not live outside.
That's correct.
Okay. Cool.
So this was my very first cast piece. It was almost life-size blue heron, and I can remember I was working 3 jobs. This piece is very special to me during that time because not only was I working 3 jobs, I had quit doing my artwork, and so I had moved to an apartment on the 3rd story and set up a little art space. And my mom said, "You got to keep after it. You got to keep doing this." And so I started making this piece, and she goes, "Don't you think that you're a little big for your britches? Like, why didn't you do something smaller? It's going to be so expensive to cast." And I just thought, I'm going to go big or go home. And so that's what I wanted to do. And I kind of was burnt out and let the piece sit there for a little while. I hadn't worked on it in so long, and one day a blue heron flew up on the 3rd story peak outside my apartment window, and it was kind of my sign. And he stayed out there every day until I finished the piece, no joke. He'd even be up there during tornadic conditions when the wind and the rain were whipping him sideways, and I thought, what is he doing up there?
Wow.
And so he became my model.
He was sent.
My role model.
He was sent.
He was sent. And I finished the piece. I took it to the foundry. I remember my grandma was so excited. She came over from Arkansas, and we put it in the van, and we drove it over, and I got my first piece cast. And on the way to the foundry, a heron was flying low over our van on the highway, and I will never forget that. So
How big is this piece?
it's about 25 inches from
Oh, really?
the
Wow.
beak to the tip of the tail.
Wow, it is big. Now, you're not supposed to, do you still have this? Did you?
It's an edition of 40, so I have more in the edition,
Okay.
but I have sold 3 so far.
Okay. There's probably not supposed to be a lot of surprises in this. This is kind of a slow, plodding process. But is there, it wouldn't probably be a surprise, but is there a special moment when you get it and you see it, even if it's coming in, well, probably not in pieces. Where is there ever a surprise in this process?
There for sure is surprises. I do not like them.
Yeah.
I think the surprises I do not enjoy are missing pieces. You know, if a bird has like a talon that's missing and they thought it was a sprue, which is just an extra piece of metal, and the foundry clips it off. But the good thing is that I know a welder, and so he's able to recreate things in metal almost as well as we can in clay, which is pretty fantastic.
Yeah,
and,
that's good.
and so we're thankful for that.
So how many studio tours have you done?
This is number 2 for me.
Tell me about number 1. How did that go?
It was amazing. I met a couple new clients and collectors here, people that I didn't even know existed, and was able to connect with my other artist friends in a way that I hadn't before. And so I'm with Lisa Lamoureux, and she's got a gorgeous place over, I think her place is called Haro Sunset, and we all hit it off really well, and I believe we all made some really good sales.
Now, is word getting out around about your I don't never know what to call this practice. It's not a practice, but your studio and your work. Are people starting to come to you now?
They are. A lot of word of mouth and repeat clients so far. I've been traveling more to talk with like cities for projects like canine statues, stuff like that. So
We need a bronze whale here.
I would love to do that.
Somebody needs to hire you to do a bronze whale.
I can do it.
Wouldn't that be great? A big one.
I actually did have an idea, but it will have to be a surprise because I will need to submit that.
Okay. Well, we'll get it out of you. But that would be really cool. And I could see how people would come back to you for more and more. It's, I keep coming back to that museum quality, that kind of permanence. There's a real permanence to this. If it's taken care of, I mean, it could look like this 100 years from now, right?
That's true.
If it's taken care of.
It might just need to be repatinaed, but.
I mean, that's the thing about bronze, is it lives on forever if in some forms. And yeah, the finish might change a little bit, but it's just amazing. It's just beautiful. Well, it's really a pleasure to meet you. I think you'll be a popular stop on the tour, the studio tour, and I profoundly impressed with your work. It is extremely beautiful. I hope someday to meet Jocelyn. She sounds like an inspiration.
I'll try to get her signed up for the studio tour as well sometime.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you very much, Kristen. Did we cover, do we have a few more pictures to look at? Or, yeah, okay, let's look at a few more pictures. I want to continue.
Okay. So there's the life-size version of the Kate dog that you saw on the table here. And she was part of a family of flying quail and some quail down there on the bottom. So that is fun. At their home.
That's fun. Wow.
I also grew up raising and training horses, and they're forever in my blood. So I've done horse workshops as well.
Beautiful.
That's a different patina on that piece that you just saw.
Nice.
It's a little green wing, green teal, and I love lovebirds too. I also do some functional art,
That's
so
neat.
I've been commissioned to do quite a few light switch plates. So
Wow.
one of my newest installations for St. Francis, Wisconsin.
Hold on. So that's bronze on marble.
It's on a huge granite base.
Granite.
Yeah, she wanted to put all of the names of the canines that were serving there, so she left room for all of their engravings.
Oh my gosh. And
Bane there just passed away a couple days ago.
So this is heavy duty stuff. This is extreme. I mean, you're going to have a national clientele. I guess you already do. This is very important work.
Thank you. I've found that the public work has really been extra rewarding. Not that doing somebody's, pet at home isn't rewarding, but when I do a public installation, I'm not only meeting the owner and the handler, their entire team. The whole city comes out to support
you
these
probably
efforts.
feel a lot of expectations, right? There's a lot riding on a project like this.
There sure is.
Whether. Yeah, I've seen the same thing when statues of people are made. But you don't do people.
I do not do people.
You just do animals.
So far.
So a little more forgiving. But still, if anybody that knows that dog, it'd be like, that better be just like it.
Oh, yes.
There's a famous statue of Martin Luther King that came out, I don't know, it's 10, 15 years ago. It was very contemporary, kind of abstract, and people hated it. Some in the family liked it, but a lot of people hated it because it just veered too far from what the expectation was. So do you have to, like, in a project like that, do you have to interview everybody or a lot of people and really understand? Because you don't get a do-over with this, with this. So you got to really understand what exactly do they want.
Yes, that's true. When I go to interview my clients, and like when I interviewed Bane, he was a pretty grouchy old man, so I couldn't put my hands on him. So I had Holly and her dad do all of the measurements, and I got to play with him if he had, something in his mouth, because he's a, trained professional. But yes, expectation, these people know almost every hair on their dog's body. They have been looking at them for 12 years. There's nobody better than those with a sharp eye. And even though they're not artists, they can tell you when something's not not right. And so I pass it by those people who, not only owners, but friends of the dog, other artists who have a sharper eye than I do. I pass it around to as many people as I can before sending it off to be molded.
And did they tell you nailed it with this last one?
I got that from the owner, and I was very happy that she thought so.
Yeah, that's what you're doing it for. Do we have any others, or was that the last one? Beautiful.
Yep, that's just Bob White's in flight.
Beautiful. Oh, that's neat.
That's another Canine Remington for Independence, Kansas. He was a part of the fire department and rode around on the fire truck, and everybody loved him. He did all of the school teachings with the kids, and that's his bell that has his paw on there.
Let me guess, because I've covered a lot of firemen and policemen. They were all crying.
Some of them were, yes.
Yeah.
And he's
you get
also
really sentimental on some of that stuff.
Yeah.
The first responders, who I respect greatly. But I would be surprised if you didn't tell me that at least some of them were
They
crying.
try to not let you catch them, but sometimes you see them with their sleeve,
That's
not their face.
right. Ooh, it looks like wood.
Yes, so this
That is really
is
interesting.
a bald eagle about half life size, and I'll have a new patina on this piece for this studio tour.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Is that it? Okay. Well, I falsely wrapped us up, and now I'm really going to wrap us up. But that's great work. This is inspiring and incredible quality, and I love that you came here and decided never to leave, and now you can't leave because you married a local,
That's true.
and now you're kind of a local. So have you found, because you were doing creative work way before you got here, have you found that this place stimulates more creativity in your work?
Absolutely. Not only doing it full time, but there's so many artists here, so many different artists that are doing.
The range is incredible. It's
It
incredible.
is. And everybody is so nice, and I just haven't met another group that surpassed Oklahoma until now.
Yeah, the art, the level of art and the quality of art and the attitude is just incredible. So it's all kind of manifest in the studio tour. That's June 1 and June 2. Do you know what stop you are? Everybody kind of knows. You know what stop? There's 23, you're in there. There's 23 stops, 66 artists in this year's studio tour, June 1, June 2. Kristen Douglas-Seitz, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really nice interview and amazing work. So get ready for June 1 and June 2. We'll see you out there.